This is the press. We're reaching you live from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now let's go to the second leg of the program, where we'll have our analysts who will analyze on the stories that we read out to you before we went on that quick report break. Our guest on the show this morning is Barrister Kelechi Anwo. He is already, I said barrister, so he's already, you know that he's a legal practitioner. It's great to have you on the show today again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good to join us on the show.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, our phone lines are open. You can call in to make your contributions or ask your questions. Now, Barrister Kelechi, there are quite a number of stories, but we'll see how we can manage the next 40 minutes that we have to discuss these matters. Flip to Vanguard newspaper, says corruption ugliest phase was under Buhari, and that's coming from Bishop Matthew Kukah. And the writers to that story, quite a lengthy one, but I'll take some of them, says laments Nigeria's sharing sovereignty with bandits and terrorists. Says Nigerians have lost faith in the judiciary. Now, that's two sides of it. And then he says, and coming, you definitely know that you get a response from the Buhari's camp. So now the aide says that we will not join issues with him. But let's leave all of that aside and let's come back to the real matter, where you have this headline saying corruption's ugliest phase was under Buhari, coming from Bishop Matthew Kukah. Do you align with that thought?
I quite agree with Bishop Martin Kukah. As we all saw under Buhari's administration, there were a lot of things that went on unchecked. There were a lot of issues that went unresolved. So many institutions and government personnel acted with so much impunity. Now, under that same regime, we had an NNPC who never remitted a dime to the federal coffer. We also had the Abacha loot, who was recovered and was never accounted for. So what other barometer of
but if you have to talk about, sorry I have to butt in there, but if you have to talk about the Abacha loot, we saw a headline yesterday, the court asking not only Buhari's administration, but also indicting former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and then even former President Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, God bless his soul, and even Jonathan's administration.
Yes, but you agree with me that under Buhari's administration had the highest recovery of Abacha loot, and that has gone unchecked and unaccounted for. And going by that, at least let us start from somewhere. It is good this judgment is coming at this point in time, but we look forward to it being implemented and then the enforcement being critically followed. But going forward, will you assess, what other barometer would you assess Buhari's administration with all these impunities and with all these missing funds and recklessness of its government officials? What has in the history of Nigeria, there has not been any government that is so reckless and unattentive to issue as the past administration in the last 8 years. You could see an array of issues that were unresolved even till the end of the administration. So I totally align myself with the view of Bishop Kukah.
Okay, let me come in now. I understand that the Buhari administration has been indicted. However, one would say, just like Hannibal said, that other administrations too, it's not just the issue of one administration being corrupt. Other administrations who had the same issue. So the question of accountability now comes in, especially just recently, Serap had filed that the money, the way it was, the Abacha loot, the way it was used should be accounted for. Perhaps if we have more organizations or bodies asking for that this money be accounted for, maybe those corruption issues will be fixed.
Organization or no organization, it does not need any organization for an administration that serves Nigerians' purpose to come up with the very legitimate and clean record. Now, the administration does not need set up to sue it first. We should not even get to the point of anybody suing anybody. From day one, everybody should keep a clean slate. Now, if you agree with me, the administration of Muhammad Buhari had in so many ways gone wrong. Now, under that same administration, we saw persons who were convicts returned to this country as senators. We saw a lot of things went bad.
They were granted presidential pardon.
Exactly. We saw even the prison broken into. We saw no convicts of any criminal, any financial fraud relating to government office. It has never been like that. We saw an administration that only used the EFCC when it came to the Yahoo boys, the small Yahoo boys, but when it came to the bigger Yahoo boys in government, they were very, very silent. So what do we all say about that? I think the prosecution should be random. It should be everywhere. Whoever that has stolen should be prosecuted. It should not just be about Yahoo boys. But what about the Yahoo boys in government? The persons who has taken public fund and has cornered public facilities, they should also be prosecuted. But that never happened under the administration. It was as if the EFCC was another classroom for politicians to walk in and walk out.
Wow, that's quite saddening. And I recall I'm reading a particular headline yesterday that says ministers, that's the former ministers during the last administration, are given 3 months to declare their assets after leaving. And I'm wondering, are you not supposed to declare your asset before you get into the office, and even before you leave the office? Why are they giving 3 months after they have left to open their assets to the CCT? Doesn't it give room for all of this transparency issue?
It's a very bad thing, and it's something we have gotten so used to. When a bad thing gets over and over, and then it becomes
a law.
Yeah. So now, ordinarily, are supposed to even declare your assets a day before. At the moment of your appointment, you declare your assets even before ascending to any public office. Now, before you leave office, before you hand over to anybody, you declare your assets. But look at us here. We are here a month after their exit. We are still talking about declaration of assets. Is that even what we are even supposed to be talking about in this country? These are persons who are even supposed to be facing jail terms for breach. Of course, it is a reckless breach of the law. The law says immediately you're leaving, you declare your assets. So why the gap? Within this period, 1 month, you have already broken the law. The law is the law.
Okay, but don't you think that this rule of immunity pardon is an issue, especially when it comes to this governors or the government itself? Perhaps if immunity was taken out of the ball or the game, maybe we'll have leaders who account or who can be prosecuted when they fall prey to corruption.
Now, that pardon, presidential or governorship pardon, are supposed to act on the basis of equity and good conscience. Now, there are persons in prisons who the law have considered, okay, you've served your terms, you've served a reasonable, and you've come, we understand you've remorsefully done your terms. It is not supposed to be for politicians. It's supposed to be for persons who had years of incarceration.
What's the difference? Why is it not for politicians?
Now, a politician walks into the prison, and I've not seen a politician who spends more than 5 years in prison. But there are persons in Nigeria who have spent close to 15-20 years without trial. There has not been any trial. In fact, someone who is even supposed to, who went in for an offense of 2 years, has spent 10 years without trial.
Oh, wow.
That means he has spent the number of years he would have spent even if he was convicted. And
there's no trial.
And there is no trial. Now, these persons are persons who you are supposed to consider those pardon, not someone who you saw stole billions of naira and then he walks into the prison by reasons of the law, and the next thing you're granting him pardon. What precedent are you set? What example are you setting to these ones who have been there 15-20 years? There are people who have been in prison for close to 30 years. These are persons who the pardons are meant for. That power is discretion, and it should be exercised justiciably, not on the basis of sentiment or friendship.
Let's move straight to other stories. Politics. This time, election matters. INEC, still on Vanguard newspaper, says INEC court holds trial of suspended Adamawa wreck Unisa Ari. And when I read this one in my mind, I'm just thinking, are we still talking about this Unisa Hari matter? Even before now, where we recall that I think he went to court restraining his arrest, and then you have him having the court halt his trial again. So you just begin to wonder. And I recall there was this allegation saying that he was backed up by some power blocks, and they were not going to mention names. So what are your thoughts in terms of all of this, and then having the fact that INEC is now excused from all of this?
I must say this with every sense of respect and regard, that the kind of things we lawyers are taking to court these days are unnecessary, and they go against what the rule of law stands. Now, if we understand that the rule of law, equality before the law, now we also understand that whoever has breached the law should be able to face the punishment and the investigation that comes with such thing. Now, nobody is exempted. There is nobody that is above the law. Now, if we understand this concept, we understand that there are certain matters we should just not take to court. We should not rush into the afternoon of the matter and then take them and get a blanket order. These orders should not even fly in the first place. Somehow, I don't know how these orders come about, how these persons are able to get this kind of orders. But it is very unfortunate for our judiciary and for our system. If somebody have committed the crime, the law allows the agencies that are involved to investigate such person. Getting an order to blanket and bar such persons from investigation is a very bad affront.
So do you actually think that it's due to the fact that they said that there's an alleged power block holding this case? That's the reason why it's been out.
I totally agree, because if there were none, such orders should not even exist in the first place. Every person who have even the Constitution even allows any person who is being investigated to answer to those investigations.
So don't you think this your statement is kicking against the part of fair airing? Because according to Justice Donatus Okorowo order, where he ordered the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, the Inspector General of Police, and the Independent National Electoral Commission to maintain the status quo antebellum, he held that parties should stay action pending when the respondents show cause, while the court should not grant the motion filed by Senator Aisha to Dihari Binani. At least the issue of fair hearing is being played here.
Now that is not fair hearing. Fair hearing is hearing from both parties. Now, the police and other security agencies are given powers by our laws to investigate crimes. They have been given out unfettered powers to investigate. Nobody has landed him in prison. Nobody has taken him up for any prosecution. But these laws have given these organizations powers to investigate. You should give them an ample hand to investigate whatever crime it is. If there is nothing that comes up his sleeves, then he will be let go. He is not in prison. All the police should do is to investigate, look at these matters. Are there within any breach? Has any law been breached by his conduct or act? If there is, then he should be prosecuted. But shooting forward before all this happens is what I am against. Getting a blanket order to bar anybody from investigating you. These orders has been flying here and there. Last week we heard about the Ganduje getting an order from Kano State High Court, and here we're having another order barring investigation. Is this where we're heading to?
Would that leave us to the statement where Cook has said Nigerians have lost faith in the judiciary, and another statement there where I think I can't see that statement, but that fact where he said Nigeria has lost faith in the judiciary, would that?
It's in all of this now. It goes to paint the judiciary to an image. This might be the action of a few, but still it is by a system, because all this will not be happening if there were no judicial process. The judicial process has been activated, and it paints the judiciary to a very bad image. The plundered image of the judiciary is what these kind of actions and orders are still plundering.
But you're talking about orders. Who gives these orders? Now, recall that some, not just the politicians, you have even some businessmen, private individuals who go to get ex parte order to either arrest someone or to put someone in jail and all of that. But then you still see these things happening time and time again. So just like I saw a part where the legal luminary who is celebrating his 60 years in bar, that's Afe Babalola, said that some matters, especially election matters, should be excused from some judges. So all of this, like she asked before, it actually paints the picture of, should Nigerians still trust the judiciary, even as we are looking forward to the results of the election tribunal?
Of course, the judiciary is redeemable. There is no institution that is irredeemable. It takes a will and the directive to do better. And with all that, if the judiciary, if we keep talking about this, now what it means is that it is already in the public domain. Persons are already aware. The only option the persons who are engaging in it have is to do better. They do not have any other option other than to do better, without which we are heading to nowhere. They must, as a matter of fact, do better. Now, getting this kind of blanket orders here and there, it does not stay well on our judiciary.
All right, let's quickly take this call before we go ahead. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Kindly turn down the volume of your TV set so we can hear you.
I've done that already.
All right, go ahead. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm calling Shodi from Benue State.
Collins from Otukpo, Benue. Go ahead. Good morning.
You see, no matter whatsoever we say, the judiciary, and there is no protection over them. They can't do the right thing. And the right judgment can never be passed. If you look to it now, any coming government, the autonomous power they give to themselves is beyond the level of the judges down to the Supreme Court. Okay, now, let's look to this presidential election now. If worst come to worst now, do you know that you cannot pass the judgment against the ruling party presently now? You can't hear it. They will wipe out all your generations. Since we didn't have that power and that security covering the judges, any issue concerning all this political power, all these muscles, never we dare to see the best out of them. So let's not just even take that as a discussion. Let's go forward for a better day. If you were in this post today, you do the same thing. And you see that even your next generation, you are planning what they are going to take over. You don't know how much they buy a bottle of water which you drink in your house. You don't know how much they pay for the bills your people, even down to your grandchildren, goes to. You don't know how much they pay their school fees. None of them. Now, the ex-governors, I was hearing something from the newspaper this morning. People that came to embezzle the state for good 8 years, they are planning another package for them. I've been saying it, we are sitting on the time of there are certain things that I know the masses do not have power. But God will give them power, so many things will go wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins from Otukpo, Benue State. I'll take that question that he asked, or the allegation that he made. I'll take it as a question straight to you. Now, he said that the current panel, judicial panel, that they cannot rule against the current administration or the ruling party because it will affect the generations.
I totally disagree. Okay. Such comments and commentary are unpatriotic. Now, we live in a society where we are guided by the rule of law. And the rule of law is to the fact that we have equality before the law. Now, these persons who occupy these seats and whatever they occupy are there because the citizens have embedded such powers on them. The citizens can decide this is what happens. This is not the first time it is happening, and this is not the last time it will happen. We could see in other countries where political powers are taken by force and citizens revolt and take back their powers. Now, I pray it doesn't get to that point where we have to have that. But people who occupy public office occupy that on the basis of trust and legitimacy conferred on them by the citizens. So, and by the law, wherever that law takes out such legitimacy and such privileges, they cease to exist. They cease to exist. So whoever that has been given anything can also be, such things can also be taken away from it.
Okay, taking the cue from that, so sorry I had to butt in again so we can manage our time. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, still on election matters, says presidential poll, APC already planning for rerun. That's coming from the Labour Party. Now, we'd like you to respond to this and then tell Nigerians, what is the current state of affairs with regard to the election tribunal? How far so far?
The how far so far is that such commentary will be jumping the bag. Oh. Now, at the moment where we are at the election petition tribunal, we are at the address stage. It is very uncommon for anybody to predict anything at this point.
Even a rerun.
It is very uncommon.
So this comment coming from Labour Party is false.
It is very uncommon. It is, they have right to project. It is politics, and anybody can project whatever it is. This is politics they are playing, but at the moment it is almost impossible to predict the outcome of the judgment. Now, parties have not even made their address. Parties were given 10 days from the 4th of July to make their the respondents were given 10 days to make their address, and upon such address, the petitioners are to take 7 days after the 10 days elapses, and the respondent comes back to respond within 5 days. So if you calculate, all this, we have barely less than 80 days from today for the courts to give their judgment, and in the next 80 days the courts will give their judgment. But for anybody to preempt whatever the court will give at this point in time, it is almost impossible. And don't forget, there were certain issues that were put up in the election petition tribunal, most of which were disqualification of candidates. So, and some were outright declaration that parties won their election. So it is neither here nor there. It is neither in rerun nor declaration of the candidate who the court thinks he won. So
okay, since we're still talking about an election and petition court, give us the reason for this down break we are actually experiencing presently. Now,
at the moment, we have, just like I said, parties have closed their cases, and it is at the address stage. In the address stage, parties are given time upon which to make their address. Parties are to file their address and file their objection. All these objections they've been raising in court, you are to file them. Don't forget, by the practice direction and the practice rule, the address should not be more than 40 pages. And at the moment, the court has granted the respondent 10 days upon which to file their address, and then 7 days for the petitioners to file their address, and 5 days for the respondent again to reply. That is, if you add 7 days to 10 days, it will give you 17 days plus 5 days. It will give you 22 days. So for 22 days from the 4th of July will give you the time upon which the court will reconvene again. It is after the exhaustion of these 22 days that parties have to file and exchange their responses, that the court can give dates upon which they will sit again.
All right. Let's take other matters as we go straight to Nation's newspaper. 800,000 liters vessel with stolen crude intercepted and destroyed. We saw that happening. I think that was last year, where you have the former chief of defense staff, where they had the barge that was intercepted by the security officials, and then it was destroyed immediately. And you had Nigerians reacting in that regard, saying that if he was stolen, so why destroy the evidence? Why clear the slate? And now you have this coming again, saying that 800,000 liter vessel stolen, and they still will be destroyed again.
And then sometimes I wonder if we are unintelligent in this country, or that we just have leaders who are not thoughtful. Like, we are a country faced with petroleum issues, and then we are a country faced with debts. We are a country faced with a lot of things. But at the moment, we seem to be destroying what we could have gotten. Now, in other countries, they will take this into custody, and it becomes the property of the government. Now, when you make this seizure, it is for the government to own every part of it. Take for instance, when the DEA in America busts a drug scene, monies recovered from those things are taken back to the government treasuries. They form part of what the monies that they go. But in Nigeria, when we have this breakthrough, all we do is to burn them and scatter them. But it is not productive for our economy. We have a dying economy, of which, imagine what an 800 liters will do to 800,000 liters will do to our dying economy. That is a whole lot of money. Do you need to burn them? You can even resell the vessel if you wish, confiscate them, and if it is true that they've breached some laws that are in Nigeria, the water laws, so you can sell them, auction them. It becomes part of revenue for the government. But destroying them adds nothing to the government, and it takes nothing from whoever that it is that has infringed on such law. We should be more conservative in how we'll add these things. These things can actually add values to our system.
Okay, we've often heard about this illegal bunkering of a thing, and yet the question would be, what's the enforcement strategy? We know that they are doing a lot, but is it enough?
There is no enforcement strategy. If there was, we wouldn't be talking about it we've been over this issue for the past 16 years. We've been over bunkering for the past 16 years. We've been here down the trail. Remember the time where we had the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua's regime, which he granted amnesty to militants. From that point, we had series of bunkeries. We had refurbished militants, or what do you call them, reformed militants. They never, in fact,
granted amnesty.
They were granted amnesty, but most of them had this illegal bunkering going on for them, and it was a suiting job for them.
Exactly.
So it was very easy for them to go back and continue from where they stopped. Now, I think I will put it just like some persons. I think there is a connivance, because if there was no connivance, we would have gotten
connivance between who and who?
Between the government agencies and these persons, the perpetrators of this wrong. If there were no connivance, there is no person that is bigger than an institution.
So are you accusing the government that they are trying to catch the thief, but yet they know the thief? I
accuse them totally. Because if there were no connivance, we won't be having this conversation for the past 16 years. There is no single person that is bigger than an institution. An institution has every powers, every authority, everything at its disposal. You have the intelligence gathering, you have the armed forces, you have the police, you have everything you can. These private individuals do not have even 1/3 of what you have.
But isn't that the reason why even that same administration that you talked about, they had the Tantita services, that's the owner, who is government Tompolo, to bring forth intelligence, and even up until now, and he was even the one that brought up this one.
Talking about the same thing if the problem have been solved in 16 years. 16 years later, we are still talking about the same thing. It means the problem was never solved in the first place. If the problem was solved, we would not be sitting here be talking about the same thing 16 years later. that goes to tell you there is a compromise. If there was no compromise, 16 years down the line, the same thing we talked about 16 years ago is still being talked about today. It means somebody somewhere is compromising because the government, as it stands and as it is, has the resources to go after whoever have and is part of such bunkery.
But don't you think it could also be sharing could go to the fact that there are no dire sanctions put in place?
Exactly. We are saying the same thing because if there were sanctions, the government have all it takes. They have both the security apparatus and the judicial system to both catch the thief, the oil thief, and also sanction the oil thief. They have all it takes to do this within 16 years. Don't you think 16 years is a very last time for this not to have been achieved? What have they been able to achieve in the last 16 years? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Every single day we talk about the oil bunker and it gets worse day by day. Now we are having persons in the before the election, prior to the election, you saw where oil pipelines were tapped from all corners. In a system that we are based, the amount of oil we lose on daily basis as a country can finance the entire country. But we lose it to persons who are not the bodies to take care of these things. So I believe the government know who are the bunkerers, but there is a compromise, like I have said. If actually they intend to stop it, they will, and it will. The persons are not bigger than the government. The government will always be bigger than every particular individual.
All right, let's take other stories then.
Okay, let's move to other stories where, okay, Niger governor enlists EFCC, ICP police and fertilizers. I think we should take that story. Niger governor, on the Nation's newspaper, where we have the Niger governor enlists EFCC, ICPC police and fertilizers. Say, how would you react to this?
Now, the issue of the Constitution has given both the federal government and the state government powers to deal with issues that relate to crime and the bodies that will take care of them. The issue of crime is not in the exclusive list of federal government. It is in the concurrent list. Now, by that, it gives powers to government to collaborate and even establish a protocol that works better for them. Now, if this governor has done this, it is a good fit. But now, the next point to look at is the intent and the practicability of such action. If such actions are going to see the light of the day, or is it another media stunt that we are seeing? Now, that will unfold in the coming days. But as at the moment, it's still a news, and we'll get to see the practicability of it.
All right, so before we finally let you go, Guardian newspaper says case against pension payment to former governors. And this story has been on the news for quite a while. And I'm sure you also saw the news where the former governor of Ogun State, that's Otumba Gbenga Daniels, OGD, decided to release his pension being paid to him as an ex-governor because he said that his conscience will not allow him to continue taking such pensions. But now you have some other governors, former governors rather, who are in the Senate. So do you actually see them going through that phase again and then deciding, okay, we are going to take this bold step that was taken by OGD and say we don't want to collect money from any other part apart from where we are working? After all, we are always talking about cutting cost of governance.
Now, that whichever state have made that law, it's an anti-people law. It's an evil law, I will call it. Because
which law are you talking about?
The laws of for pension for ex-governors and their cronies.
Okay.
Now, it's an evil law. That law should be declared unconstitutional. Well, I believe in the coming days, some lawyers like myself will have to challenge such laws, and I will even challenge the one coming from my state. Now, such laws should not exist in the first place. Now, ask me why. These governors are not civil servants. They are not. They are tenured persons. So they are not. They do not have that lifespan of civil service. So why should they be demanding for pension?
Okay, now let me bust your bubble. Sorry, I have to call it. Let me bust your bubble, because I had a conversation with one of with the Federal Commissioner of RAMFAC, that's Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, where I asked him about this same matter. Why do you people pay, because they are into disbursement, why do you pay formal governors, formal presidents so much severance packages and pension and salaries? And then the one reason that he told me, I can remember vividly, is where he stated that some of these politicians, when they go back home, that they're not like the ordinary Nigerians. When they go back home, people are expecting so much from them, so they have to always help people that they are around them, else they will be stoned, they will be cursed. And
it's a very lame excuse to make for a failed system. Now, those things, these governors are well paid while in office, and they amass a lot of wealth even while in office, both legally and illegally. Now, a governor have so much money at his disposal, and within the 4 to 8 years that he spends in office, a governor who had previously had just a self-con or probably a 3-bedroom flat before he started contesting, we now have a palace in Abuja, a dynasty in his hometown. Now, in all this, and a very fat bank account, someone who could barely boast of even more than 2 cars will have a private jet to his name. Whose fund are those coming from? These people basically drive the state before they leave. And again, you continue that act by providing pension for them. Now, how much pension is provided for civil servants? How much have they added in the salaries of civil servants?
Yes, I recall asking that same question, and he
how
said
much have they added to the salaries of these civil servants? None.
And then he said that the governor spent 4 to 8 years, but the civil servant spends 60
now,
years.
if you look at the salaries that are even paid to these governors, they are very outrageous. The allowances, aside the salaries, the allowances, at the end of the day, just take for instance a senator now. A senator takes home at least 29 million. Then at the end of the day, he will tell you his salary is around 600 and something thousand. But a senator takes home 29 million. Now, the law is that you cannot be paid twice. So all these persons who have been receiving money as an ex-governor and a senator is taking an illegal money, and most of them will need to account and return those money.
All right.
Okay, I think we should take one more story before we go. That of Tinubu can't appoint everybody minister. I recall you reading a headline which says, I can't remember the person who said it, but he said they should consider those in the APC party.
The chairman, national chairman, says APC it should be considered as ministers.
Now, the government offices are not they are not places to do favor. They are not favor ground. Now, at the end of the day, what should play in is competence and capability. Persons who are capable, whether you are members of this party or not, should be appointed. That is my thought. But rewarding, we've seen in the last couple of years what it means to reward cronies.
Exactly.
And the evil that it has done to our country. Now, at the end of the day, when you reward cronies, you reward ineptitude. You reward persons who have no insight as to what they are going there to do. Persons who will run such organizations from 100 to 0. But when you appoint persons who are capable, irrespective of their political divide, they know their onions, they know the job they are called to do. So from day one, they keep running like the president said.
Keep hitting the ground running.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelechi Barrister. It's been a wonderful time having this discussion with you.